Yeah, good. So both parents died due to famine. Uncle eventually also died. Mm. Then he left alone. He went on to go seek instruction from other lamas. And in fact, then he went into retreat, yeah, for about 3 years, practicing Vajrayogini and Mahamudra. It is said that during that time, results came. One of the side effects, you have to understand this is just side effect. Yeah? This is not the main goal. But one of the side effects of his practice is that he achieved some ability to heal people of their physical ailments. So again, he gained a reputation for that. And he also was a very successful first, even before that he had developed this power to heal people from illnesses, his pujas is said to have been very effective. But eventually he saw, the dangers or the obstacles that came from having a reputation for, doing really good pujas and having the reputation of being a healer. He saw both of those as obstacles. So I think this really, reminds us or points to us like, even if, on some level you say, well, it's good, if his pujas are effective, then he can help people, right? That's how we would think. Or, oh, it's good, he can heal people. But, here it points out, from Jigten Sumgon's perspective, as helpful as those things might be, if we, are not careful, they become obstacles. Obstacles to what? Obstacles to the most important goal, for the benefit of our enemies even. Dadangma, right? The opening prayers that we do in Drugong, that composed by Jigten Sumgon, Dadangma, those who hate me. For the sake of those who hate me, for the sake of my enemies, I now pursue the path to awakening. I now pursue the path to enlightenment. So this Dadama, for this reason, then even having good puja abilities, your puja yield results, whatever people ask for, long life, winning lawsuits, all those are all puja concerns, business, job security. Yeah, I mean, I request those, as necessary. Some problem come, call the monastery. Oh, can you all please do this puja, that puja? That's the truth, And even those who perform the pujas here, Jigten Sumgon saw, this is an obstacle. So first, he saw the obstacle of having a reputation for doing good pujas. Then he went to the retreat, did Vajrayogini. One of the side effects of that, he became a healer. Then he saw that's also an obstacle. Then eventually, he also developed this kind of, and this is a less kind of, if his ability to heal illnesses was something that people admired and universally liked, there was another side effect of his kind of accumulation of his realizations and power, which was that it seems that when people try to harm him or harm those who support him, bad things happen. So in his biography I've read, he said, this is the work of some of the protectors that have pledged to protect him or his practice. These are not necessarily enlightened protectors. So we say that in the retinue of protectors, Dharmapalas, the main Dharmapalas are enlightened or close to being enlightened. At least 8th Bhumi and above, those Dharmapalas we can rely on. And then there are Dharmapalas that are 8th Bhumi and above. And then there are Dharmapalas who are emanations of full Buddhas already. So like Drigungkagyu, we believe, of course, this is what we believe, not other people might disagree. Achichogi Droma, we say, is the emanation of like Tara. Then there are also Dharmapalas that are 8th Bhumi and above. But then there are all sorts of Dharmapalas that are on the 7th Bhumi, 6th Bhumi, and then even more Dharmapalas that are not even on the 1st Bhumi. And so some of those, might like in their haste to protect, in this case, Jigten Sumgon, cause other people who were trying to cause harm to Jigten Sumgon to themselves be harmed. Yeah. So again, Jigten Sumgon saw that, and understood and said, "Oh no, this is not good. Yeah? This again, these are obstacles." So he was not satisfied with his achievements. So this is to point, in an earlier section when we're reading this, it says in the section where Sobish talk about how sometimes Jigten Sumgon's Gongchik has been characterized by modern scholars, Western scholars, as anti-intellectual. Right? Remember that discussion, right? That modern Western scholars tend to group, right, the world of Tibetan Buddhism into two groups of people: those who are anti-intellectual and those who are very intellectually inclined. Superficially, we say, oh, Gelugpas and Sakyapas are on this side, very intellectually inclined. They very much emphasize logic and reasoning and all of that. Then superficially, we say, the anti-intellectual are the Kagyupas and the Nyingmas, on this other side. But that's just superficial characterization. I think more generally, I think even within each, among individual practitioners within one lineage, you will find some who, lean more in the direction of practice, some more in the direction of studying, right? So he says, sometimes people characterize the Gongchik tradition, the single intention, as an anti-intellectual tradition. Sobish, makes the argument that no, it's not so much that it's anti-intellectual as it is that Jigten Sumgon is very concerned about latching on to conceptual theories, especially conceptual theories that you have very painstakingly arrived at based on logic, argument, reasoning, and winning those arguments, and yourself even, even if you're just debating within your own head, not with anyone fighting with anyone out there, especially, when you reach certain conclusions by reasoning and logic that you have put in so much hard work, it's very easy to get stuck there and think that those concepts are the reality, are the realizations themselves. And so he is cautious of that. He is critical of that. And Sobish points out, likewise, even with meditation, and the states that can arise in one's meditation, he also, we will see in the Gongchik, he will also criticize or call attention to how these are obstacles. These are temporary states, even very high states. We say that as you progress along the path, there are three experiences, or even seemingly realizations of clarity, no thought, and bliss. Clarity, absence of thoughts, and bliss. And these are generally said to be, important achievements along the way. But Jigten Sumgon places so much emphasis that, hey, watch out for those three levels of experiences, because even those are to be relinquished. So here we see, in his life, in his life's how many things that occur that for us we might take as, oh, I'm doing well, you know. He recognized that, okay, this is one step, but he also quickly recognized, no, these are obstacles if I become satisfied with these results. So he moved on. Then he met, you know, then he heard of the name, it says on page 5 of Pamodrupa at the age of 25. And he was so moved by just hearing the name. Then he decided, I need to go look for this teacher. So at this time, Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon was born and raised in eastern Tibet. And Pamodrupa lived in southern Tibet. In this area, now his monastery is called Densatil. Densatil is close to Samye, so close to the Lhasa airport now, south of the city of Lhasa. So I've been to Densatil. And so he went in search of Pamodrupa, traveled to central Tibet. So here Sobish talks about how, so now we will continue from here on page 5. Sobish says, Jigten Sumgon's greatest flaw seems to have been his excessive pride. And this, you know, Jigten Sumgon himself confessed many times that he was very prideful, that pride would arise easily in him. The biography reports how he frequently spoke, you know, in a very prideful manner to his fellow students, because, you know, he was so, I guess, intelligent, you know, and also he had so good experiences in meditation. So then he was very dismissive to his fellow students. So they didn't like him, you know. So he said, before even he arrived at Pamodru, he thought of himself as an exceptionally gifted disciple. Became very self-satisfied when he had visions and dreams when he was staying in Pamodru, when he arrived. But when he arrived in Pamodru, this area, Pamodru is the area, Densatil is the name of the community, the monastery. But during that time, there was no monastery. There was a hut that Pamodrupa lived in. They have preserved the hut now, maybe rebuilt, you know, but basically there's a hut, a kind of a round hut, and like a yurt, you know, but more primitive. Pamodrupa lived in that hut. Then people came from everywhere, and they, you know, built their huts around him. So that was the monastery of Pamodrupa, Densatil. It said that people came from all over to Densatil. Densatil, Densa means like the main seat. So it's not a special name. It's just, it means like the main seat, the main center of Pamodrupa. So Pakdru Densatil. Pakdru Densatil. Densatil, it's amazing, you know. Now I think of it, like people went all the way to where his hut is. It's way up, you know, in the mountain. Way up in the mountain. Like today, there is a paved road, not paved, concrete road. The Chinese government built a concrete road. I don't know how many $1 million was spent. This is not an asphalt. It's a concrete road that went for miles and miles and miles up to Pakdru Densatil. And up there, when I was there, less than 10 monks living up there. Barely anyone goes up there. Even these days, you know, when you can drive up there. I remember going up there and thinking, my goodness, you know, the people who came looking for Pamodrupa really wanted to see Pamodrupa. Really, really wanted to see Pamodrupa. These days, you know, we're like, oh, parking downtown Asheville. Oh God, a headache. I don't think so. You know, I'm just going to stay at home. Urban Dharma. Oh no, that this weekend there's things going on downtown. It's okay. I just stay at home. You know. Of course, Pomodrupa is not in downtown Asheville, so there's not much motivation, Pomodrupa is not in urban Dharma. But very skillful, Pomodrupa also basically, he had no interest, so to say, to enlarge his reputation. He mainly wanted to practice. But if people showed enough, like focus and dedication to come up all the way, first you have to get to the valley, and that's a journey. Then from the valley, still, you look up, you're like, oi. And also, I think very skillful, when you finally make it up there, you're not so likely to leave just because some things are not working out for you, you're like, oh my God, going back down there. Okay, I'll just, tough it out and stay here. So both, going up, if you have enough devotion and dedication to go up, that took a while. Then once up there, you will be challenged. It's not going to be easy, as we will see here. So when you meet challenges, also not so easy to just run away and say, oh, I don't like this, I'm going to get in my car and drive home now. You're kind of stuck up there, So anyway, if you get a chance to go to Pakru Densatil, you should. It's beautiful from up there. You look down the whole valley and you get a feel, oh, wow, this was where, so many came to study with Pomodrupa. Pomodrupa is the originator of the 8 further groups of Kagyu. Among Gampopa students, Gampopa had 3 main students, Karmapa, the first Karmapa, Pomodrupa, and then Dharma Wangchuk, I think, was the third. 3 of them. Maybe not Dharma Wangchuk, I forget. 3 of them. They're called the 3 crazy men from Kham, from Eastern Tibet. They're kind of crazy, as in crazy wisdom, the 3 of them. So Gampopa had 3 main disciples. One of them is Pomodrupa. From Pomodrupa, 8 traditions of Kagyu developed. They did not develop out of disagreement with each other. They developed because these came from different parts of Tibet. After Pomodrupa passed away, they went back to different parts of Tibet and established their own seats. In the same way, Jigten Sumgon eventually left Pamo Densatil and went to Drigong and started Drigong Densatil. Drigong Densatil, also called Chanchutming. So this is how the 8 further groups of Kagyus developed. They all went to different areas. Drukpa Kagyu also came from here, Pomodrupa, Talong Kagyu, Shuksep Kagyu, and so on and so forth. So it says, so he was very self-satisfied when he had visions and dreams while he was staying in Pomodrupa. So I was going to say, when he arrived in Pomodrupa, he wasn't a monk. He wasn't a monk. He was a lay practitioner. In fact, he did not become a monk until Pomodrupa passed away. But what that meant is that in the hierarchy of things, he sat behind all the monks in the assembly. He sat behind all the monks. But even with that, it said that he was very proud. Or as maybe sometimes he would put it, like, no, I'm not proud. I'm just very confident. Fine line, right? Pride and confidence. So then at one point he was so smug that he stopped attending his guru's public teachings and remained meditating in his own hut. Oh, certainly. I understand that, because we see that today, people who think, oh, I already got that. I'm just going to meditate. I'm just going to meditate and think, that's better. Yeah, maybe that is better. But if it is out of, you're so smug and confident, oh, I know already, then that is an obstacle that we need to overcome. And then there are those of us who think, oh, I can improve the Guru's teachings. Oh, he should say it this way. Oh, he should say it that way. I mean, there are literally people, who would, in the teaching, interrupt the teacher. It's one thing to ask questions, to clarify. In fact, when you ask questions, you're probably helping many others who also have the question, but they don't want to ask, or they don't dare to ask, or whatever, But then there are some who would interrupt, to basically like add more information than what the Guru has given. Oh, and also, there is blah, 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 it's like, so here, Jigten Sumgon, he was so smug, that he thought, he's just giving public teachings. I don't need to attend this, Don't do that unless your Guru tells you, no need to come. You stay and you meditate. That's different. Yeah. Okay. Now, on the other hand, he was able to recognize his flaws and so rapidly apply remedies. So he had a great flaw of smugness and pride, but he was also working on that. That's the difference, We have a lot of faults, but we try to explain our faults away. Then change will never happen. That we have flaws, that's a given. You don't have to beat yourself over that and torture yourself over, the flaws that you have. That's a given. Like Christians will say, we're all sinners. Good to know that. Even Buddhists will agree. Maybe the vocabulary expression different. We're all sinners. We're all samsaric beings. Of course, we have strong afflictive emotions. That we have strong afflictive emotions, that's not news. That's not bad. It's only bad when we don't recognize the afflictive emotions as afflictive emotions. So Jigten Sumgon, he recognized them. Once displeased by a high Sangha member, meaning a monk in Pamodrupa's community, he was annoyed with someone. So this is the Guru's inner circle. He got annoyed at them. Then he thought that all others must be even worse. This was when he first arrived. Very judgmental mind, right? He thinks, oh my gosh, the inner circle of Pamodrupa, that guy behaved like that. I can just imagine, how lousy the other practitioners are. So this is also a reminder to us, if you happen to be more kind of so-called the inner circle around any teacher, you have to remember, how you act reflects upon your teacher. This is not about, oh, you're going to damage the teacher's reputation, shame on you. But more that if you are with the teacher because you think he or she is a good guide for others, and if you then damage the way people are going to view this teacher because of your lack of mindfulness and awareness, then you have, put an obstacle on someone's path to freedom. So we have to be very careful like that. So anyway, he had this judgment against one of Pamodrupa's senior monks, and then he kind of blanketed everyone else and say, they're probably even worse. But once he recognized that, He visualized all Sangha members as deity, with the Guru seated on their head, and thrice, 3 times, prostrated to each one while reciting the 7-branch prayer. Immediately, he recognized the fault. And he put the remedy. Later, he said that however great one's powers, when I read this line, I was like, oh yes, this need to take to heart. However great one's powers, if one does not treat all human and non-human beings with respect, such powers are useless. One must renounce contemptuousness through thought or speech. Of course, through mind, then not just through mind, but even in thought or speech. I mean, speech and action. However great one's powers, if one does not treat all human and non-human beings with respect. So I've made this confession before, and I said, it's hard to maintain pure vision of everyone. In this dark age, it's even hard to maintain pure vision of those who we consider gurus. I please don't misunderstand. I don't put the blame just on the students, teacher too. Don't make it easy for us to have pure vision. So, both sides. Later in one of the Vajra statements by Jigten Sumgon, he says, Samaya is something to be upheld on both sides, not just lopsided. It's not only a burden of the students, it's also a burden for the teacher. And both parties have to uplift, hold that burden. Anyway, so I said, like it's a real challenge to have pure vision, even pure vision of those that we admire and those we aspire and those we look up to. How much more difficult to aspire to work on pure vision of all beings. Then particularly, as a teacher, it's hard to have pure vision of students as deity. Because your given job is to help them see the faults that they have. And it's so easy that in trying to do this job right, you kind of easily, only look at the side of where the faults, what needs to be purified, and you forget the diamond. So it's really tough. That's why, Milarepa said, unless you are an 8th level bodhisattva, don't accept anyone as students. Those are his standards. By his standards, I think today, no teachers and no students. But there's something to be said about that standard, Anyway, he says, Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon say, if one does not treat all human and non-human beings with respect, such powers are useless. During the relatively short time he spent with his teacher, about 30 months, a little less than 3 years, he received the instructions on the 5-fold path of Mahamudra and the path of means. Path of means is the yogas of Naropa. Then the 5-fold path of Mahamudra is called the path of liberation. Generally, tantric practices are divided into the path of liberation and Jorlam, and then Taplam, not Jorlam, sorry, Tarlam, the path of liberation, and Taplam, the path of means or method. So Mahamudra style instructions is the path of liberation, and then yogas of Naropa or dharmas of Naropa is the path of means or skillful means. So he trained in both with Pamodrupa. The biography portrays him as Pamodrupa's long-awaited disciple whom he favored with unique teachings and predictions. So apparently, a few weeks before Jigten Sumgon arrived, Pamodrupa kind of mentioned, and said, someone, important is on his way here. Then closer, he would say, my successor is not here yet. It said that Pamodrupa had 500 chief disciples. The Vinaya term for that is those who have parasols above them. So meaning, they deserve, a special parasol. That means they themselves have students. And so Pamodrupa had 500 of these monk disciples who themselves are masters in their own right. But apparently, he said, my successor is not here yet. Then the day before Jigten Sumgon arrived, he said, so probably somewhere between the valley and coming up to where he is, he said, he will arrive tomorrow. So when Jigten Sumgon arrived, nobody really noticed because they were expecting, everyone was expecting a great monk, probably already an established teacher. But it was just, an ordinary, quote-unquote, lay person that arrived. And Pamodrupa didn't pay much attention, didn't show much at first. So anyway, before Jigten Sumgon arrived in Pamodru, the guru is supposed to have said that his lineage would be continued by an upasaka, a layman. After Pamodrupa's death, the disciples seem to have chosen Jigten Sumgon as the head of the congregation in Pamodru. So this is very unusual. So that means that within the 30 months that he was there, despite the fact that there were these 800 parasol monks with parasols, despite that, after the death of Pamodrupa, Jigten Sumgon kind of became the main person responsible for arranging the funeral and kind of chairing the place. So it says, after the funeral, Jigten Sumgon collected his guru's remaining instructions from Tsilungpa, one of Pamodrupa's chief disciples. So he continued to train. So he trained from this Lama Tsilungpa. By the way, Pamodrupa, before he became, before he studied with Gampopa, he studied with one of the great masters of the Sakya lineage, Sachen Kunganingpo, which I believe is the uncle of Sakya Pandita, or the grand uncle. I'm a little bit fuzzy. But Pamodrupa studied with Sachen Kunganingpo and was one of the chief disciples of Sachen Kunganingpo before Pamodrupa came to Gampopa. In fact, Pamodrupa came to Gampopa in order to debate Gampopa, to refute Gampopa's, what from his perspective then, Pamodrupa's perspective, to be wrong views. So he went to Gampopa to debate Gampopa, but in the end, he stayed with Gampopa and then never returned to where he came from. But Pamodrupa is the holder of important Lamdre lineages. Lamdre is the main system of the Sakyapas. So in the Lamdre text, you see that he is in the lineage prayer of the Lamdre text. So he was highly schooled in the Sakya school before he came to Pamudrupa. Nevertheless, Jigten Sumgon still had to suffer many hardships. He was thrown out of a temple, beaten nearly to death with a stone, was neglected by those who were supposed to serve him, was ejected from Lama Shang's teaching, and was rejected subsequent to the spread of false accusations about him. So he had a hard time, continued to, face all kinds of challenges. Lama Shang was a disciple of Pamodrupa, Shang Shelpa, Shang Tselpa, hard to pronounce, Shang Tselpa, Lama Shang. And so, like Pamodrupa's generation. So Jigten Sumgon went to receive teachings from Lama Shang, and then somehow, due to people being jealous of him, he was kicked out. But Lama Shang himself had real high regard for Jigten Sumgon. Shortly after the death of Pamodrupa, Jigten Sumgon entered a retreat where he remained, except with one interruption. He was in retreat for 7 years after Pamodrupa passed away. Subsequently, Jigten Sumgon's own disciples also followed this tradition. Take care of the Lama's funeral and all the different things that needs to be done, and then go into intense retreat. So Sherab Jungne, Jigten Sumgon's main successor and the one who collected the Vajra statements of Gongchik, also did this. He went to about 7 years of retreat in Kailash. But here Jigten Sumgon himself went into retreat for 7 years, but somewhere in the middle, he left to do some things. We'll learn about that. So during the first 3 years, at daybreak and during the first morning session, he would contemplate death, impermanence, karma, cause and result, and the disadvantages of samsara, a practice that he later recommended that everyone perform at the start of each session. He would then cultivate the resolve for awakening and remain in the meditative equipoise of the stages of cultivation and perfection, meaning generation and completion stage, to which he was committed. At night, he would practice the yogas of dream and luminosity. One of the more mysterious passages of his biography states that at this point, that, quote, when he was slightly unwell, large and small birds and so forth taught him means to improve by directly showing him physical exercises and passed them on to him by means of language. So no idea, how birds taught him physical yoga, showing him, how to do all these, yogic postures. So, but apparently, large and small birds. As a result, he realized outer and inner dependent origination and understood that which by its fundamental nature is wholesome and unwholesome. So this is a key emphasis that he will have throughout his life, his teaching, his guiding of students. The interdependence that gives rise to what we label as positive and negative, virtue, non-virtue, the resulting happiness from virtue, unhappiness, suffering from non-virtue, and both mundane happiness, so virtue that leads to mundane happiness, and virtue that leads to ultimate happiness, being free from samsara. So he emphasized that this fundamental nature that sometimes you call Buddha nature, sometimes in other contexts you call emptiness, in other contexts you call luminosity. Here, this fundamental nature is inseparable from the workings of cause and effect. In particular, he understood that all that was prohibited and permitted by the Buddha is on the basis of that fundamental nature, inverterately prohibited and permitted. Prohibit and permit is the choice that Sorbish used. I feel it's a little strong. Sometimes it's good to have such a strong expression, but you can also think of it as prescribe and proscribe, using more of a doctor's vocabulary, a healer's vocabulary. So all Buddhas do is to prescribe and proscribe. Proscribe is to say, the following things don't do. If you do, you're going to get sicker. Your situation is going to get worse. Prescribe as in, do this. Take this medicine. Take it this way. Proscribe, avoid, this lifestyle. Avoid this kind of food. No more donuts for you. That's a proscription. Prescription, eat more vegetables. Prescribe and proscribe, rather than permitting or prohibiting. Permitting and prohibiting has a, I don't know, to me, has a certain legalistic feel to it, which especially I think in the West, with the baggage of God-based systems, we tend to think religious instructions is about allowed or not allowed. I like to always say, in the context of Buddha Dharma, it's nothing to do with allowed or not allowed, because there is no God sitting somewhere allowing or disallowing, Like if you push something off your kitchen counter, you're not going to say, oh, gravity allowed it to fall. It's just how things are. You're going to push something off the ledge, it will fall. And then gravity allowed it to break? No, with the right causes and conditions, it's going to break. And without the right causes and conditions, it will not break. Difference between Corel, and, your fancy china, The Corel ware that you get from Target or Walmart, you push it off the counter, it meets your slate floor, it's not likely to crash and break, because the causes and conditions are not fully there for it to break. So maybe, not permitting or prohibiting, but prescribing and proscribing. Then that is, he maintained, Kyobpa Jigten Sumgon maintained, that because they were based on the fundamental nature, the rules of conduct given, here he said, ordered by the Buddha for the fully ordained, were conducive to awakening, even when followed by ordinary people. And failing to follow them would only bind them to samsara. Oh, this point is very important, and also kind of very much like, you're like, what do you mean? Often we will say, if you didn't take that vow, then, you're not bound by that vow. But the implication here now is, these vows that monks have, nuns have. Yes, I'm not a monk, and not a nun either. Then we think, oh, that means it doesn't apply to me. Jigten Sumgon said, actually, no. If you make the effort to keep them, it will only be beneficial. And if you don't keep them, then not keeping them would bind you further to samsara. So that's something to think about. So it said, if you follow very literally, the monk's vows, for example, only 3 sets of robes, or rather not 3 identical sets. It's not like you can have 3 outfits, but it's like those 3 pieces that constitute your robes. It says you should only have that. More than that, it's like a downfall. So then you think, I'm not a monk. Then, when you look at your wardrobe, basically this rule is saying more than what you're able to wear on your body at any given point in time, more than that, every piece more than that is another binding. You're like, well, true or not true? Yeah, it's true. Monk or no monk, right? Monk or no monk, it's true. On the side of expense, you have put more of your resources there. On the side of waking up and going, today, this, or this, or this, and maybe this, maybe that, or that. Oh, gosh, I don't know what to wear. More bondage. With or without having taken the vows. With or without being a monk or nun. Don't think, oh, that doesn't apply to me. Then rules like, how much you should eat, when you should eat. Then you think, oh, I'm not a monk. I didn't take any vow not to eat afternoon. Sure. So in full disclosure, I eat, I'm not a monk. I'm thinking, oh, I eat, And full disclosure, actually, in the Tibetan tradition, they don't literally observe this. They eat after the main meal, which is lunch. They eat dinner. But here, Jigten Sumgon's point is like, you should not just think, oh, well, I never took that vow, so then I don't have to keep it. Or you think, oh, then there's no benefit. But no, of course there's benefit. If we're able to follow at least the spirit of that rule, to the degree that we're able to keep them, it will simplify our lives. It will be less of a bondage, less of a tie, less of an entanglement, less of a prison. So we have to be able to see, Buddha's teachings, Buddha's prescription in the right spirit, rather than treat them like, like the text code, which is basically hire an accountant to figure out how you can get around, the code that has been written. Well, that doesn't apply to me. Well, there's a loophole there, So we stop here today on page 6. So as you can see, we have a few more days to go before we even finish looking at Jigten Sumgon's biography. But quickly, let's see. Any questions or comments?
Technical question.
Sure.
I see that they're being recorded now. Is there a place where we can access them or not yet?
Jasper will have the answer to that. I don't know the ins and outs of Zoom, but you ask him, he can grant you access. I don't know yet if there's a universal cloud somewhere
Okay.
that these are all being placed in.
Okay.
So we will try to get to the bottom of that. Tech support is here today. So I'll talk to tech support.
Hi, Nathan. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for today.
So reminder, yeah, well, this will be every day. And then reminder that this Friday in the PM, 9 p.m., we will have the second session to the Panashavari teaching and practice.
Good morning, Dr. Lee.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good, good. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. I can't wait for you to get on page 8. That paragraph, you know, really it's intense.
Yes, page 8.
When I talk about page 2, when he talks about the inner, outer, and secret.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that is the main, Jigten Sumgon's understanding of interdependence, outer, inner, secret. All of the Gongchik is all about interdependence on all the different levels, and
yeah, but the way he presents the inner, the outer, and the secret, I never seen this before.
Yes, yes. Outer, inner, secret can be applied to so many levels, so many different contexts. And when I talk about Panashavari, for example, and this current situation, outer cause of suffering is the virus, inner cause of suffering is negative karma, secret cause is confused mind. So you see how outer, inner, secret is applied. And outer, inner, secret are always working hand in hand. Sometimes we can change things by immediately going to the secret level. But sometimes we have to change things by, working on the outer. And sometimes we have to change things by working on the inner. But even as we're working on the outer or working on the inner or working on the secret, understand that it's just what is being foregrounded. What is in the foreground and what is in the background. So when we are doing like Mahamudra meditation, then we're addressing the suffering from the secret level. Then when we are doing things like accumulating merit, doing mantra recitation, making lamp offerings, hanging prayer flags, we're treating it more from the inner level. Then when we are like doing things that are maybe it's not so explicitly spiritual or religious, but virtue, and also prevention of suffering on the material level, then that's the outer.
Okay.
Yeah. So outer, inner, secret is a very basic rubric used in Vajrayana to talk about the different levels of what's going on. But important to understand is that the different levels do not contradict each other. They mutually reinforce each other. So likewise, outer, inner, secret also mutually reinforce suffering. And then there's also remedy, outer, inner, secret to mutually undermine suffering. Yeah, but in that passage is particularly to do with interdependence.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I got a question.
Yes.
Coming back to the to the guru to the puja that we are doing just now. The
Guru puja, yes.
Yeah, guru puja. The guru's three secret, is this where is saying like this outer, inner, and secret?
No, the guru's body, speech, and mind.
Oh, guru, body, speech, and mind. Okay.
Yes, three secrets is body, speech, and mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with this outer, inner, and secret dependent, right?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Also sometimes called the three Vajras, the three indestructible: body, speech, and mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are you gonna send more pages? Because the book is not available. I have not been able to download it.
Yeah, the book, it's only available, even Wisdom just made it available. So I'm encouraging people to find ways to actually get the book, given all the chaos that's going on. But Wisdom has been very good at sending. We ordered in bulk for Asheville people on a Tuesday afternoon. Friday afternoon, it got delivered. So meanwhile, I'm only sending pages of the sections that we're covering as we're going along. Yeah. So until, everybody more or less has the text, then I want to encourage. I know it's not like a $20 text. It's $95. Then you add shipping, and then our friends in Malaysia, it's even way more expensive. When all is said and done, in theory, it could cost $160 to get the book. And of course, even in Malaysia right now, their money is worth 4 times less than what it's worth here. So you multiply all of that. Yeah. But I know they are working on getting the book shipped to Malaysia. And if Dharma centers order from Wisdom, they will give you 40% discount. So in that way, in Malaysia, they can use that 40% discount to pay for shipping. Otherwise, $95, shipping is $65 to ship to Malaysia. It's hefty, But I want to put a word in for Wisdom, that Wisdom Publication is a non-profit Buddhist publication house. As you know, there are 2 main publication houses in the US. One is Shambhala Publication and one is Wisdom. And Wisdom Publication is, of the 2, Wisdom Publication is the only non-profit. Shambhala Publication is owned by a family. Not Trungpa Rinpoche's family. Sometimes people also misunderstand. It was started by Trungpa Rinpoche's students, and hence it has the name Shambhala Publication, but it's a family that owns it. Yeah? I'm not saying that the family is getting rich over this. Don't misunderstand me, but it's a basically personal business. And they've done very well, Shambhala, so we should support Shambhala. And then more so, Wisdom Publication, being a non-profit, it both advantages and disadvantages. In many ways, their hands are tied, but they really is a non-profit. And so to whatever degree we're able to support Wisdom Publication, I think it's really good. We can support. I see that they also have a Kindle version. I don't know if they've released that yet.
It's not available yet.
Right, but right now, Amazon is going to have a Kindle, but it's not available yet. Yeah. So, if you can get a Dharma Center, to order, then it's up to the Dharma Center, what percentage of discount they want to give to the members who want to buy this book. So at the end, the dedication, a brief dedication of bodhicitta, the most precious mind, where it has not arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it increase. And may it increase and become greater and greater until the state of Buddha is actualized. Changju Sem Cho Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Nam Ge Gyu Chi Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me